So I'm here with you, Nikita, and you basically transitioned from working in the trades to now a full-time closer. But why don't you introduce yourself to everyone, kind of, your story, what got you into this, and everything in between, lad?
Yeah. So how are you getting on, folks? My name is Nikita. I'm 20 years of age. I was a tiler for the past for 8 months, and I've been working construction for the past 2 years. I was laboring for a bit, welding for a small bit, but I'm a full-time closer now, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Nice. You actually done a bit of welding as well. I didn't even know
100%. Say again?
you done a bit of welding before the tiling.
Exactly, man. It was fancy welding. I was a TIG welder. I was a pipe fitter before.
So TIG welding, then transitioning into something a bit cleaner, a bit drier with the tiling. What was that transition about? What made you go into the tiling?
Oh man, it was a case of I was working in a plant. I was working in a pharmaceutical, and I was above there. Well, I say I was working, I wasn't actually working, I was on my phone more than I was actually welding as such, if that makes sense. So I was just bored as such, so I kind of went to something else. Went to the tiling. I said, look, it's kind of the next best thing. It's inside, it's indoors, it's still dirty enough that I feel like I'm doing something, but it's clean enough that hopefully it might be a path for the rest of my life. But I quickly found out then as well that wasn't it either.
Okay. So, I mean, like, you only done it for the 8 months. When you said you quickly found out it wasn't that either, like, run me through your experience with the Thailand then, or over the 8 months.
Yeah, I mean, like, John, when I started it, lad, it was something new to me. I enjoyed it or whatever. I was learning something new every day. But as time went on, month two, month three, kind of, you'd start feeling pains in your knees and stuff, man. Because I mean, you're down on the floor for 8 hours on end. And then from that, lad, it was like pains just after work to pains in the mornings getting out of bed. And then, Sunday evenings, your knees are still sore and you're facing into another week of work. So it's kind of enough to sort of push me away from it or push me over the edge as such.
Fuck. So after 8 months, your knees were already giving you a right bit of bother.
Yeah, exactly, lad. Exactly.
And how many guys did you work with?
I was working with one of my buddies actually. We went to school and everything together, so that was a good part of it, I suppose. I was working with a fella I knew for 8 or 9 years beforehand, and it was good fun and stuff. But I mean, the work itself, lad, it was just painful. It was physically demanding.
So for you to go from being in the construction itself for 2 years, between TIG welding, between Thailand, to transition into something completely different, the online space in general, remote sales in general, what made you want to go down into this path itself?
Um, yeah, good question, lad. Good question. I suppose it was like the whole online money making thing, that always interested me since it blew up or whatever 2 or 3 years ago, however long it was. But I mean, yeah, you have the likes of crypto and drop shipping and all that, but there's no actual skill behind that as such. They're like any fella could do it. And then I was saying, that can be taken away from me. If I don't have something concrete as such, it can be taken away. So I started looked elsewhere. I was like chatting with people, just casual conversations or whatever. Never took much notice of it. But then when I came across yourself then on TikTok, I seen what you were doing, remote closing, and I went into it and I looked into it as such. And I kind of seen what I was about, and I said, look, that's kind of that ticks all the boxes for me as such. It's actually a skill, it's talking to people for money, and there's good money behind it then.
So you're talking to people for money, but you do that every weekend in the pub for free anyway.
Exactly, exactly.
So you realize, right, I'm Irish, I can talk, I'm seeing this fella remote closing, it's a skill. So run me through the journey then, because how long, has it been that you've actually been doing this now, like in terms of learning, in terms of landing a closing role?
Okay, so the start of February, that's kind of when I started learning as such, or jaw. That's kind of when I went into the academy. Start of February, man. All of March, and to be honest, I got slightly burnt out. I took the bones of a month off. I didn't even open my laptop, 2 or 3 weeks, I think. Um, and then and then from that, lad, I kind of went back into it head first, or Joe, went back into it with my feet hitting the ground running. And from that, what, April, May. So at the end of May was when I kind of landed the closing role as such.
Mm. So 3 months essentially to go from complete beginner to landing your first closing offer.
Yeah, more or less, man, more or less.
So run me through that. You mentioned you got burnt out at the start. What happened there?
Yeah, I suppose it was just because, it was something totally new to me and I thought to be a lot easier than it was as such. I mean, yeah, 100% like I'll get the hang of this in 2 weeks, not a bother. But it wasn't like that. It was just I kind of and then it kind of brought me down as such. I lost motivation, because I seen everybody else, they were getting certificates, they were kind of making money, and I was kind of still stuck working on site, working 8 or 9 hours a day, coming home and then spending the rest of my evening on the laptop actually learning as such. But from that then, I changed my perspective. I said, look, there's still people making money, there's still people getting their certificates, but I'm sat here doing nothing as such. So that's kind of what pushed me to get back into it then.
Mm. So run me through what your day to day looked like, you know, because like I hear so many guys say to me, "Oh, I don't have time." I'm flat out with work. Run me through what your day to day looked like. I mean, you were working 9, 10 hours a day while you're probably in the gym, and then you're learning on top of that as well.
Yeah, 100% lad, 100%. So I mean, it was kind of a case, wake up 5:30, 6 o'clock, have the shower, have a bit of breakfast, 5:30, 7, kind of leave the house, be on site for 8. Um 8 to 5 then usually, you might be 8 to 6 some days, but 8 to 5 usually, man. And then back home, go for a shower again, have something to eat. It was 7 o'clock, and then honestly, lad, I cut the gym out for the start just because I wanted to get the move on with this as such. I wanted to kind of do as much as I could. So then it was more or less 7 to 10 or 11 at night on the laptop studying, kind of just learning for the rest of the evening, and then the same routine day in, day out.
Mm. I guess like for someone who is maybe coming into this fresh at the start, like what advice would you have for them?
Good question. Put the head down. Put the head down because yeah, the first month, the first 2 months are always going to be tough. It's something totally new to you. Keep the head down. If you can make it through them first 2 months, that's when you start seeing results. That's when you kind of start seeing success as such. And from that, lad, it's only up really.
Yeah, okay. Because I know it's even for me, like I was in a stage where I was on site, going to jobs of my own, running these jobs. And then when I came into it, I was like, holy fuck, this is something completely different. You're learning sales, you're in an environment where you have to lower your ego, right? Because essentially you're asking questions, you're learning. There's people there that are much younger than you that
Exactly.
are absolutely, crushing in the space. So for me coming in, I was like, holy fuck, like, right, I need to learn to make that, to actually fucking do well at this.
Exactly.
You see, you talk about, lad, like, you want to learn a skill. Obviously, your knees were sore, right? Was there anything else that was like really motivating you to want to get into, learning a skill online?
Man, I mean, like the money was another big thing. Yeah, the money with the tiling was fine. Don't get me wrong, it was all right. But at the same time, I was looking at the likes yourself, for example. You were making triple, quadruple the amount I was making, and you were also living a way better life. You were still wake up in the mornings, you were fresh, like your knees weren't sore. You were out in the sunshine, and I was on some cold, wet site toiling for a quarter of what you were making. So you could say the money, lad, was another big driving factor for me.
Hmm. You see, like, obviously going into this, this space, right? Online space in general, there's such like a stigma around it, especially the Irish mindset. Now, you're from Cork. I wouldn't
Mm,
I feel like the South is a wee bit more old-fashioned compared to the North, right?
yeah.
Like, talk me through your friends and family, the mindset there, even your own mindset coming into this. Was there a skepticism there? Like, what were you thinking?
Lad, of course, man, of course. You like from a young age are told to stay in school, study hard, go to college or go to get an apprenticeship. And I was doing the exact opposite. I was going against the grain as such. So of course I was doubting myself every second day, man. Joe, am I actually doing the right thing here? Like, is this actually going to work out for me? And honestly, that was kind of the main reason. I didn't tell anybody else about it. So I told two or three of my buddies about it, don't get me wrong. But I kind of kept it on the down low because I mean, if you were doubting yourself one day and then one of your friends pass a comment or something, oh, are you still doing that thing online? Like, is that even going to work out? That could be enough to push you over the edge and make you just totally stop as such. But I mean, man, it's just kind of it's literally, keep the head down. If you can make it past them couple times that you're doubting yourself, it's like that's what I call the storm. And the other side of the storm, it's all sunshine and rainbows as such.
Well, when you talk about that, right? Obviously,
Hmm.
you talk about yeah, your friends, right? And like I can definitely understand that one where it's like you're learning something, you're only a month in, and people don't understand that you're actually learning a skill at the end of the day. It's not just something you can jump into and have it overnight and be earning,
Exactly.
10 grand a month. If it was like that, everyone would do it. So when you're in the trenches and you're learning, people are like, are you making any money yet? And you're like, no, I'm still learning. It's like, oh, sure, fuck's sake, that there's this and that there's that. Now I know this from my own experience like even with
Yeah.
my dad and like my family. And then like I turn
Yeah.
around the stage where, I was moving out, I was land home with an M4, my dad's speechless. So it's always,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially when it comes to like the Irish mindset on families, it's like you have to do the work to prove them wrong. Some people just can't understand, they just want instant gratification. Just
Exactly.
see long-term vision or something. That's why you like go and get a job because you're getting paid straight away.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
When you talk there about lad, like you weather the storm, right? What was it that pushed you through that?
Oh man. I mean, I suppose I'm competitive as a person, I don't like being beaten, and again, when I was seeing people inside the academy, doing better than me, I guess that was kind of one point. But then, if you just look at it how it is, you're still going back to sight, there's people changing their lives, but because I haven't done anything or because I'm being a little bitch as such, I'm still going to site. I'm still hating every single day. I'm still looking at my watch every 5 minutes, hoping it's 5 o'clock. So I guess it was literally take a step back, and I was like, look, if I stop now, this is my life. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. But if I keep going, I can change it right here, right now.
Yeah, 100%. It's like
Yeah,
going to site every day was your motivation because realistically speaking, now you got a role in 3 months, right?
yeah,
You mentioned to me before you've handed your notice in at work as well,
yeah.
right? Are you still working or when are you stopping the tiling then?
No, man, I'm out of the tiling now. Probably what, 3 weeks, almost a month, I'd say.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, yeah,
So no, you've been closing like full time out of your job. Like when you talk about like burnouts and tired and all this here. It's like you go to site every day, right? And you look at lads who have stuck with that their whole lives. That is it. Even
yeah,
if they wanted to change, they've stuck with it their whole lives. And that was a massive motivator for me because I had a lot of boys who have been doing it for 40, 50 years, who are complaining about the same shit that I'm going through, and me only doing it for, 8 years at the time. So realistically speaking, you're 3 months away, of, dialing in every evening after work to never have
yeah.
to go back,
Exactly,
essentially.
exactly.
For you then, man, coming into the academy, run me through your experience there. Like, what was your initial thoughts? How has it kind of been for you?
Oh yeah, man. Again, like, I came into it, almost like you were saying, Joe, with that ego, oh yeah, I'll be able to do this in 2 weeks, not a bother, I can tile a house in a week, like not a bother, I'll be able to do this. But then you kind of get shut down, so it's like you're beaten down, kind of straight away, and you're like, okay, okay, so this is actually going to take a small bit of work, no problem, no problem, I'll get it done. And I mean, then, that kind of I went through that gap, them 3 or 4 weeks of a gap, and I guess it was kind of the community inside the academy. Then, I was getting texts from lads, where are you, like, or haven't seen you in a long time, what's kind of going on? And I guess that small bit or job, that little, I guess them few texts and kind of still whatever motivation I had left was enough to kind of push me to get back into it as such.
Mhm. So being held accountable, inside the
Yeah,
Irish community there as well with the other Irish lads who obviously are full-time closers to what, to reach out to you, where the fuck you at? Let's get back in action here then.
exactly, man, exactly. That was a big help, like.
So now that you've been closing, right? You've now left your job, you've been closing full time for a month. What's your biggest week been then as a closer?
Just a small bit over 2 grand in a week, 7 days, man. Which is what, triple, quadruple of what I was making when I was a tiler.
And how many hours would you say you worked that week?
I worked it out, man. I worked it out. I worked 25 hours that week.
So you worked 25 hours spread over 7 days to make €2,000 in a week.
Exactly, exactly.
So now that have this sort of, you have this freedom essentially where your days work around you, you're earning this good money. Like, what does your like day to days kind of look like now? Are you able to do things that maybe you weren't fit to do before when you were tiling?
Oh, lad, 100%, man. 100%. I mean, like, I'm still waking up early, I feel like that's kind of that's always a pillar that you need to live by as such. The early bird gets the worm, right? So I wake up early, man. I spend maybe 3 or 4 hours doing a small bit of deep work,
Mm.
kind of down, no phone, nothing. Um, I kind of what I go to the gym then. I might go for a swim in the swimming pool. I might go down to the local river or the lake or something for a dip. I'll have something to eat. And I'll come back then and I might do another couple hours of deep work. And man, if there's something on for the evening, if my friends want to meet up or if I want to go for dinner or if I want to go to the cinema, 100% I'm going to do it. But if there's nothing else on, lad, I'll still just be tipping away at work. So it's kind of like that freedom. I can work when I want to, and if I work, I'm going to get paid for it.
How do you find that being able to work when you want to? Is there times you find yourself maybe sleeping in because no, you don't have to be there at a job site, you don't have to be there with a boss. How do you find now being like responsible for your own time?
Yeah, another good point, man. Another good point. The idea of it sounds amazing, but again, it's harder than it is to hold yourself accountable. Make sure that you get up on time, make sure that you actually do the work, like because nobody's watching you. It's not like the site, the foreman isn't there shouting at you to get it done or whatever. It's your own decision to do it. So, I mean, if you're driven enough, lad, and if you actually want it that bad enough, it's not that hard, but it's just something to be aware of as well. It can creep in, this laziness as such.
You see, for you now, right? Now that you're out of your job, you're 2K weeks, you have this freedom that you're after, you're now able to structure your days, go to the gym, everything in between. Run me through what your parents think of this. What was their
Mm,
initial thought process and maybe what's their process now to it?
mm. Good, another good question, lad. I mean, man, I'll be honest. I didn't tell my parents for the first 2 3 months. I didn't tell them what I was at. They just didn't really ask either. I was just in the office a lot, and there wasn't really a whole pile of questions asked. They were, yeah, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just doing a small bit of sales there. I'm doing something on the laptop. But then when I left the job, I was forced to tell them. So I was forced to explain everything as such. And man, the first week, the first 2 weeks, it was like a case of they were kind of looking at me saying, Is he, what's wrong with him? Like, is he all right? Is this actually going to work out? Is he doing the right thing? But man, all it was just show him that pay slip for 2 grand and say, look, this is what I earned in 7 days. Like you seen me, I was down around downstairs making food and stuff. I cleaned the house that week as well. I didn't kill myself for that money. So that's what's possible in this space. And from there, man, don't get me wrong, they're not just cheering me on as such, but they'll help me wherever they can as well.
See, it's obviously something different to Irish parents because like they grew up in a time, 80s, 90s, where it was a good idea to actually go work a normal job. You could buy a house
Hmm,
for 90K, you were making 30K a year, right?
hmm,
So your money in the bank was gaining interest on that. Now it's the
hmm.
stage where you're still making 30K a year, you're paying 400, half a mil for the average house. And it's like that doesn't work now. Like they didn't have access to the internet and they didn't have the opportunities that we actually have now.
Exactly, exactly.
See if, for example, I was a beginner on the fence maybe about coming into this space, what advice would you have for me?
Um, do it. Do it. Like, if you actually are driven, if you actually want it that bad, you will see the results. But that's something you have to determine yourself, whether you actually are driven, whether it's actually bad enough. If you're on a mediocre with the sites, if you're saying, yeah, I could do it for the rest of my life, stay on the site. But I mean, if you're sure the sites aren't for you, if you're sure university or college isn't for you, man, this is kind of the next option. This is the next logical option, the online space. And I mean, if you actually look at it, there's no way that you can lose. There's no way it can't work out. If you put in the work, if you put in the repetitions, you're going to see the results, you know?
Hmm. I get you, man. So the only way to really feel when it comes to it then is just self-infliction, not actually doing the work that you need to be doing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. You know, like that's exactly why it wouldn't work out. I mean, you have the same tools as me, you have the same tools as yourself, you know, it's literally just the repetition that the difference is between us, you know?
Mhm. So for you then, Nikita, right? What's the plans for you moving forward in the future then?
Good question as well, man. I mean, I'm leaving Ireland in January. I'm gonna go out to Southeast Asia. I don't know exactly where yet. You know, it might be Thailand, it might be Vietnam out to yourselves, it might be Bali. I'm not quite sure just of yet, but I'm going out to Southeast Asia somewhere. And from there, like just scaling, you know, 15, 20, 30K months.
It's such a tough decision, isn't it? Which country will I go to? Will I go to Bali? Where in Southeast Asia will I go to?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean,
Not a
there's
bad
too
thing
many.
to have.
Yeah, exactly. A good problem to have, man.
Nikita, brother, I appreciate you jumping on, and it was good speaking with you, bud.
Thank you for having me, lad. Thank you.